Millionaire CEO fights with a janitor and falls hopelessly in love with him. Celeste Harrington stood in the sleek, glass-walled conference room of her towering Manhattan office, her heart racing and her palms clammy. The walls echoed with the voices of her executive team, their opinions clashing like metal on metal. The quarterly results were in, and they were far from what she had expected. As the CEO of a billion-dollar tech company, Celeste had learned to navigate the turbulent waters of corporate America, but today felt different. Today, frustration simmered just below the surface. When the meeting concluded, she stormed out, her heels clicking sharply against the polished floor. The air was thick with tension as she passed cubicles filled with employees who had witnessed her outburst. She had always prided herself on being approachable, but lately, the pressures of her position had begun to wear her down. Her assistant, Mara, rushed to keep pace with her hurried steps. "Celeste, are you okay? You seemed really upset in there." Celeste ran a hand through her tousled hair. "I'm fine, Mara. Just frustrated." She sighed deeply, her shoulders sagging under the weight of expectations. "I don't understand why they can't see the bigger picture. We need to innovate, not just chase the numbers." Mara nodded, her eyes darting nervously. "Maybe you need a break. A little distance could help you think clearer." Celeste scoffed lightly. "A break? In this industry, there's no time for breaks. I need to push forward. But it's not just the team, it's the entire atmosphere. It feels stagnant." As they approached the elevator, Celeste's frustration rose again, and she snapped, "And don't even get me started on the cleaning staff. They treat them like they're invisible. I swear, I've seen them leave trash in the hallways just because they don't care." Mara hesitated, then replied gently, "Celeste, they're just doing their job. Maybe they feel just as unappreciated as you do." Celeste rolled her eyes, dismissing the thought. "They need to respect the space we're giving them. It's a professional environment. I shouldn't have to remind them to keep it clean." As the elevator doors opened, Celeste stepped inside, her mind racing with thoughts of the meeting and her growing annoyance. It was a long ride down, and the silence felt heavy. When the doors finally opened to the lobby, she stepped out, ready to confront the world again. As she exited the building, she spotted Leo Grayson, a janitor who worked for the cleaning company contracted by her firm. He was tall and lean, with an easy confidence about him that seemed out of place in the sterile atmosphere of the corporate world. Leo was in the middle of pushing a cleaning cart, a mop and bucket trailing behind him. Celeste had seen him many times before, but rarely had she paid him any mind. Today, however, she felt an inexplicable urge to confront him. "Hey," she called out, her voice sharper than intended. Leo turned, his expression shifting from surprise to guarded curiosity. "Yes, ma'am," he replied, his tone polite but wary. Celeste stepped closer, crossing her arms. "Do you not see the trash in the lobby? This place should be spotless. You have a responsibility to keep it clean." Leo raised an eyebrow, his calm demeanor contrasting with her agitation. "I cleaned it just this morning, but it looks like someone decided to toss their coffee cup on the floor. It's not just my job to keep it clean, it's everyone's job to keep it that way." His words struck a chord, and Celeste felt a rush of indignation. "You're just a janitor. You should be grateful for the job you have, not lecturing me about responsibilities." Leo held her gaze, unfazed by her condescension. "And you're just a CEO. Doesn't make your job more important than mine. Everyone has their role, and everyone deserves respect." Celeste's breath hitched, surprised by his boldness. No one had ever spoken to her like that before. "Excuse me. Look, I'm just trying to do my job the best I can," he continued, his voice steady. "But that doesn't mean I want to be treated as less than anyone else here. We all contribute to this place, don't we?" The weight of his words sank in, and for the first time, Celeste felt a flicker of doubt about her own worldview. I guess I never thought about it that way," she admitted, her voice quieter now. Leo's expression softened slightly. "Well, maybe it's time to start thinking about it. Respect goes both ways." With that, he turned away, continuing with his duties, leaving Celeste standing there, caught off guard by the exchange. As she watched him mop the floor, she felt an odd mix of irritation and admiration for his courage. How dare he challenge her, yet how refreshing it was to hear someone speak so frankly. Celeste returned to her office, her mind racing. She couldn't shake the encounter from her thoughts. How had a simple janitor managed to unsettle her so profoundly? As she sat at her desk, she replayed the conversation over and over, questioning her own attitudes and the way she had treated those around her. Later that day, Celeste found herself wandering through the office, her eyes searching for Leo. She spotted him in a quiet corner, sketching in a worn notebook during his break. Curiosity got the better of her, and she approached him cautiously. Leo," she started, unsure of what she wanted to say. He looked up, surprise flickering in his eyes. "Yes, ma'am. I wanted to apologize for how I spoke to you earlier. I didn't mean to come across as rude. I was just frustrated." He nodded, accepting her apology without reservation. "It happens to the best of us. We all have our days." Celeste took a breath, feeling a strange bond forming between them. "What are you drawing?" she asked, peering over his shoulder at the intricate sketches on the page. Leo smiled, his eyes lighting up with enthusiasm. "Just some ideas for a mural I've been wanting to create. Art has always been my passion, but it's tough to find the time." She examined the drawings, captivated by their depth and emotion. "You're really talented," she said genuinely. "Thanks," he replied, a hint of pride in his voice. "It's just something I do to escape from the daily grind." Celeste felt a warmth spreading through her chest. "We could use more art around here," she said, surprising herself. "Maybe I could help you present it to the company. I think it would be a great addition to the office." His eyebrows shot up in surprise. "Really? You'd do that for me? Why not? We all deserve a chance to express ourselves, don't we?" Celeste replied, feeling a strange sense of liberation as she spoke. Leo smiled, and in that moment, the tension that had initially characterized their relationship began to dissolve. "I'd appreciate that. It would mean a lot to have your support." As they exchanged ideas about the mural, Celeste felt a shift inside her. The walls she had built around herself were beginning to crack, and for the first time in a long while, she felt a genuine connection with someone outside her world of high-stakes business. In that bustling office, amidst the chaos of corporate life, a spark ignited between them, one that would challenge everything they thought they knew about each other and themselves. In the bustling heart of New York City, the skyscrapers loomed overhead, casting long shadows across the streets. Celeste Harrington, the formidable CEO of Harrington Enterprises, hurried through the marble corridors of her company, her heels clicking sharply against the polished floor. The morning had been a whirlwind of meetings and deadlines, and tension hung thick in the air. She found herself in her office, staring out at the bustling city below, feeling a familiar knot of frustration twist in her stomach. Days had passed since her heated confrontation with Leo Grayson, the modest janitor whose unyielding stance against her elitist views had ignited a spark within her. She had dismissed him as just another worker, but something about his assertiveness had shaken her. Was it his courage or the way he seemed to see through her carefully constructed facade? Whatever it was, it gnawed at her, unsettling her in a way she hadn't anticipated. Celeste sighed, shaking her head as she returned to her desk. "You need to focus," she muttered to herself, but her mind kept wandering back to Leo. Meanwhile, Leo navigated the office floors, his cart filled with cleaning supplies. He was well aware of the contrast between his world and that of the executives who moved in their polished suits and designer shoes. Each day, as he cleaned the glass conference rooms, he caught snippets of their conversations, talk of mergers, profits and high-stakes negotiations. The air was thick with ambition, but that day, it felt different. Celeste's words from their confrontation echoed in his mind. "Why can't they just see us as people?" he had asked her, frustration evident in his voice. "We're not just here to clean up after you." That thought lingered with him as he pushed his cart down the hallway. He caught sight of Celeste through the glass walls of her office, her brow furrowed in concentration. There was something intriguing about her beyond the power suits and corporate demeanor. He had seen a glimpse of vulnerability in her eyes during their argument, a flicker that suggested she wasn't as impervious as she seemed. A moment later, their eyes met through the glass. Celeste's breath hitched as she felt a rush of heat flood her cheeks. For a brief instant, she was taken aback by the intensity of his gaze. It was as if he could see right through her, peeling back the layers she had spent years constructing. She quickly looked away, her heart racing, but not before she noticed the faintest hint of a smile on Leo's lips. Leo, feeling emboldened by their connection, decided to take a chance. He approached her office door, hesitating for a moment before knocking lightly. Celeste looked up, startled. "Yes," she called out, her tone a mix of surprise and curiosity. It's Leo. I wanted to see if you needed anything," he said, his voice steady despite the flutter in his stomach. Celeste raised an eyebrow, surprised by his boldness. "No, I'm fine, thank you," she replied, but there was a softness in her tone that didn't go unnoticed. "Just, busy." "Right," he nodded, glancing around her office, which was adorned with accolades and awards. "I just wanted to say that I appreciate what you do. It's not easy being in charge." Celeste's defenses began to crumble at his unexpected compliment. "You think it's easy?" she asked, crossing her arms. "You have no idea how hard it is to keep this place running." "I can imagine," he replied, leaning against the doorframe. "But you also have a team behind you, right? People who want to help you succeed." "I suppose," she admitted, her voice dropping slightly. "But sometimes it feels like I'm carrying the weight of the world on my shoulders." "That's a heavy load," Leo said thoughtfully. "But you don't have to do it alone. Just like we're all part of a team here, everyone plays a role." Celeste met his gaze, feeling a newfound respect for him. "You're surprisingly insightful for a janitor," she said with a hint of a smile. "I'm not just a janitor," Leo replied, a slight edge in his voice. "I'm an artist, too. It's just not something I get to show often." Celeste's interest peaked. "An artist? What kind of art?" "Mostly drawings and paintings. I have a sketchbook I carry around," he said, almost shyly. "It's my escape, you know." "Can I see?" she asked, surprising herself with her eagerness. Leo hesitated, but the warmth in her eyes encouraged him. "Sure, it's in my locker. I can bring it by later if you'd like." "Please do," she replied, her heart pounding at the prospect of seeing a different side of him. As the day wore on, Celeste found herself distracted, eagerly anticipating Leo's visit. She had never been the type to entertain personal connections with employees, yet there was something about him that stirred her curiosity. When Leo finally returned, he held his sketchbook close to his chest, a nervous smile on his face. "Here it is," he said, handing it to her. "Just promise me you'll be honest." Celeste opened the sketchbook, her breath catching as she flipped through pages filled with intricate designs, vibrant colors, and raw emotion. "Leo, these are incredible," she exclaimed, genuinely impressed. "You have real talent." He shrugged, a hint of pride creeping into his expression. "Thanks. I just do it for fun, mostly." "Fun?" Celeste echoed, her brow furrowing. "This is more than just fun. You could showcase these people would pay for your work." "Maybe one day," he said, looking down. "But right now, I have to support my family." Celeste's heart ached at his words, realizing the burden he carried. "What about your dreams? Don't you deserve to pursue them? I do, but life isn't just about dreams. Sometimes, it's about survival, Leo replied, a hint of sadness lacing his voice. I have a brother who depends on me. I can't let him down. Celeste felt an overwhelming sense of empathy wash over her. I understand. I've had my share of responsibilities too, she shared, her voice softening. But it's important to remember that your dreams matter, Leo. They're part of who you are. Their conversation deepened, revealing layers of vulnerability and understanding. Leo shared more about his brother, the challenges they faced, and his longing to break free from the constraints of his current life. Celeste, in return, opened up about her past, the abusive relationship that had left scars on her heart, and the relentless pressure to maintain her empire. As they talked, the barriers between them began to dissolve, replaced by a growing bond forged through shared struggles and aspirations. Celeste realized that Leo was not just a janitor, he was a dreamer, an artist, and someone who understood the complexities of life in a way that few others did. Thank you for sharing this with me, Celeste said, her voice barely above a whisper. I feel like I'm seeing you for the first time. And I feel like I'm seeing you too, Leo replied, his gaze steady. You don't have to hide behind the CEO armor all the time. It's okay to be vulnerable. I'm learning that, Celeste admitted, her heart racing at the intimacy of the moment. Maybe we can help each other navigate this crazy world. Leo smiled, a genuine warmth spreading across his face. I'd like that. As they exchanged glances, both felt an undeniable connection blossoming between them, a connection that transcended their differences, a spark igniting in the most unexpected of places. In the heart of the corporate world, amidst the chaos and ambition, they had found a rare and precious bond, one that promised to change the course of their lives forever. Celeste Harrington sat at a small corner table in a quaint cafe nestled between the towering skyscrapers of Manhattan. The aroma of freshly brewed coffee and baked pastries filled the air, providing a stark contrast to the tense atmosphere of her corporate office. She had invited Leo Grayson, the modest janitor whose boldness had sparked something within her, to join her for coffee. Her heart raced with anticipation. She couldn't quite put a finger on why she felt this way. It had been years since she had felt this alive, this curious about another person. When Leo arrived, he looked a bit out of place in his work uniform, but his presence filled the space with an unexpected warmth. His dark hair was slightly tousled, and he had a hint of a smile that made Celeste's heart skip. She gestured for him to sit across from her, and he obliged, his movements slightly hesitant but his eyes alight with curiosity. Thanks for coming, Leo, Celeste began, her voice steady but tinged with an eagerness she couldn't suppress. I thought it might be nice to chat outside of, well, the office. Leo leaned forward slightly, his elbows on the table. I appreciate the invite, Celeste. It's not every day I get asked to have coffee with the CEO. He chuckled softly, but there was a seriousness behind his words that made Celeste feel both flattered and exposed. I know that I can come off as intimidating, she admitted, her eyes searching his for understanding. I've been so focused on my work that I often forget the people behind it. You mean, like the people who clean up after the meetings? Leo replied, a teasing tone in his voice. But it's not just about cleaning. We all have our roles to play, right? Celeste smiled at his quick wit, appreciating how easily he reminded her of the humanity that lay beneath their roles. You're absolutely right. I've just been so wrapped up in the company that I lost sight of the bigger picture. They ordered their drinks, and as they waited, Celeste felt a growing sense of comfort in Leo's presence. So, what do you like to do outside of work? She asked, genuinely interested. Leo took a moment, his expression shifting as if he were weighing his words carefully. I draw. I've always loved art. It's my escape, I guess. I carry this sketchbook with me everywhere. He pulled the worn sketchbook from his bag and opened it to reveal a collection of intricate drawings, portraits, landscapes, and abstract pieces that seemed to dance off the page. Celeste leaned closer, her eyes widening in admiration. These are incredible. I had no idea you were so talented. She ran her fingers over the pages, captivated by the depth of emotion in each piece. You should showcase your work. Leo shrugged, a hint of insecurity creeping into his demeanor. I don't know. It's just something I do for myself. I'm not sure the world is ready for it. Why not? You have a gift, Celeste insisted, her passion igniting. Art is meant to be shared. You never know who it might touch. He looked at her, surprise flashing in his eyes. You really think so? I do, she replied, her voice earnest. Art has a way of connecting people, of expressing what words can't. I wish I had a fraction of your talent. As they sipped their coffee, the conversation flowed effortlessly. They shared stories of their childhoods, their dreams, and the struggles they faced. Celeste found herself opening up in ways she hadn't expected. I grew up in a wealthy family, but it wasn't as glamorous as it seemed. My parents were demanding. They had a vision for my life, and I spent years trying to meet their expectations. Leo nodded, his expression empathetic. I get that. My family is struggling, and sometimes it feels like I'm carrying the weight of the world on my shoulders. I have a younger brother who looks up to me, and I just want to make sure he has a better life. Celeste's heart ached for him. That's a lot of pressure. It must be hard to balance your dreams with your responsibilities. Yeah, Leo sighed. But I try to remember why I'm doing it. I want him to believe he can pursue his passion, just like I want to pursue mine. I wish I had that kind of perspective when I was younger, Celeste admitted. I was so focused on success that I forgot to enjoy the journey. Leo smiled at her, a glimmer of admiration in his eye. It's never too late to change that, you know. Life's about the experiences we create, not just the goals we achieve. Celeste felt a warmth spread through her, the connection between them deepening. You're wise beyond your years, Leo. I've been so lost in my corporate world that I've neglected the things that truly matter. Maybe we can help each other, he suggested, a playful glint in his eyes. You can teach me about business, and I can teach you about art. I'd like that, she replied, her heart racing at the thought. But I have to warn you, my business lessons might be a bit boring. I doubt that, he chuckled, his laughter infectious. I think you'll surprise yourself. As the afternoon sun streamed through the cafe windows, casting a golden glow around them, Celeste found herself lost in Leo's words. She had always seen herself as a fierce and determined leader, but in this moment, sitting across from him, she felt vulnerable and free. Leo had a way of drawing out the parts of her she had buried under layers of responsibility and expectation. Can I ask you something? Leo said suddenly, his tone shifting to something more serious. Why did you really invite me here? Celeste hesitated, caught off guard by the directness of his question. Honestly, I'm not entirely sure. There was something about our conversation the other day that struck a chord with me. I think I've been craving authenticity in my life. She took a breath, her heart pounding. And I felt like you were someone who could provide that. Leo's eyes softened, and for a moment, the weight of the world fell away. I'm glad you feel that way. I think we all need someone who sees us for who we are, beyond our titles or roles. The connection between them was palpable, a thread pulling them closer as they shared their dreams, fears, and vulnerabilities. Celeste felt a shift within herself, something awakening that she hadn't realized had been dormant for so long. As they finished their coffee, Leo reached for his sketchbook, flipping to a blank page. Can I draw you? He asked, his voice laced with excitement. I promise I won't make you look like a cartoon character. Celeste laughed, her cheeks flushing. I would love that. But I can't promise I'll sit still. Challenge accepted, he grinned, and she watched, captivated, as he began to sketch her. As the lines took shape, Celeste felt as if she were being seen for the first time in ages, not just as a CEO, but as a woman with dreams and fears, longing for connection. The cafe buzzed around them, but in that moment, it was just the two of them, lost in their own world. "Just so you know," Leo said, glancing up from his sketch, "I think you're pretty incredible. You're not just a CEO, you're a person with a story that matters." Her breath caught in her throat, and she felt a wave of emotion wash over her. "Thank you, Leo. That means more than you know." In that cozy cafe, amidst the laughter and chatter of the city, two worlds collided, creating a bond that neither of them had anticipated. As Leo continued to sketch, Celeste knew she had stumbled upon something profound, an unexpected connection that held the promise of love, understanding, and the beauty of being truly seen. The polished glass walls of Harrington Enterprises reflected the bustling life of Manhattan outside. Inside, however, the atmosphere was heavy with tension. Celeste Harrington sat at her sleek, modern desk, her fingers tapping nervously against the surface. A meeting was about to begin, and she could feel the weight of her colleagues' scrutinizing gazes as they filed into the conference room. "Are you ready for this?" her assistant, Emily, asked quietly, leaning in with concern. Celeste offered a tight smile, masking the unease roiling in her stomach. "Ready as I'll ever be," she replied, though her voice lacked conviction. The meeting commenced with a flurry of reports and presentations, but Celeste's mind wandered, fixating on the confrontation she had with Leo just a few days earlier. His boldness had unsettled her, forcing her to confront her own biases and assumptions. She had always viewed her position as a fortress, built on years of hard work and sacrifice, but Leo had managed to breach its walls with a few pointed words. "Celeste," a sharp voice cut through her reverie. It was Veronica, her ambitious colleague who had been eyeing her position for months. "We need to discuss your recent decisions. Regarding the cleaning staff. Your casual approach is affecting our productivity." Celeste felt her heart race, her defenses rising instinctively. "I believe in treating all employees with respect, Veronica. Our team is more than just a number on a spreadsheet," she shot back, her tone firm. Veronica smirked, her eyes glinting with confrontation. "That's all well and good, but you need to understand that this is a business. Emotions have no place here." Celeste clenched her jaw, feeling the anger bubbling inside her. "And what about integrity? You think ignoring their contributions is the way to success?" The room fell silent, the tension palpable. Celeste could feel the judgment of her colleagues weighing heavily on her. She took a deep breath, trying to regain her composure. "I'm not going to apologize for valuing every member of this company, regardless of their role." The meeting continued, but the atmosphere had shifted. Whispers circulated as her colleagues exchanged glances, some filled with skepticism, others with admiration. Celeste's resolve began to waver. She had never cared what others thought, but now, she felt exposed. After the meeting, she retreated to her office, seeking solace in the silence. She leaned back in her chair, staring out at the city below. The streets were alive with people, each one moving with purpose, and yet, she felt increasingly isolated. A soft knock on the door interrupted her thoughts. "Can I come in?" It was Leo, his voice steady yet cautious. "Of course," she replied, motioning for him to enter. The moment he stepped inside, she saw the concern etched on his face. "What's wrong?" "I noticed you seemed a bit off during the meeting," he said, crossing his arms. "I know things have been tense around here." Celeste sighed, running a hand through her hair. "It's just. Veronica is pushing back on my leadership. She thinks I'm being too lenient, too emotional." "Emotional?" Leo scoffed, shaking his head. "What's wrong with showing you care about your team?" "Apparently, everything," she said bitterly. "In this world, it's all about numbers and profits. No one wants to hear about integrity or respect." Leo leaned against the wall, his expression softening. "You're not just a number, Celeste. You're a leader. And leaders can choose to do things differently. Different how? She asked, her voice tinged with frustration. By ignoring the bottom line. By building a team that believes in you. You can't run a company on profits alone, you need people who want to work for you. They need to know you value them, he replied, his gaze steady. She felt a flicker of gratitude for his words, but the doubt still gnawed at her. You make it sound so simple. But this is a cutthroat environment. Maybe that's why things need to change, Leo suggested. You have the power to shift the culture here, to make it more inclusive, more human. Celeste leaned forward, resting her elbows on her desk. You really believe that? Absolutely, he said, his voice filled with conviction. But it starts with you. You have to believe it too. His unwavering gaze ignited something within her, an ember of hope amidst the looming shadows of doubt. I want to believe that, Leo. I really do. As the days passed, the tension in the office only escalated. Veronica and her allies began working behind the scenes, sowing seeds of dissent among the staff. Celeste could feel the undercurrent of discontent as whispers grew louder, questioning her authority in decisions. One afternoon, as Celeste prepared for another meeting, Emily rushed in, her face pale. Celeste, you need to see this, she said, handing her a tablet. There's a rumor going around that you're planning to cut staff to save costs. What? Celeste exclaimed, her heart sinking. Where did that come from? I don't know, but it's spreading like wildfire. If you don't address it soon, it could get out of control, Emily warned. Celeste's mind raced. How could they twist her intentions like this? She had worked tirelessly to create a supportive environment, yet here she was, on the brink of losing everything. Let's call an emergency meeting, Celeste said, determination flooding her veins. I need to set the record straight. As the staff gathered in the conference room, Celeste took a deep breath, her heart pounding in her chest. She could see the skepticism in their eyes, the uncertainty that had taken root. Thank you all for coming on such short notice, she began, her voice steady, but the weight of their judgment pressed heavily on her shoulders. I want to address some rumors that have been circulating regarding staff cuts. A murmur erupted in the room, and she raised her hand for silence. I want to assure you that I have no intention of making cuts. I believe in all of you and the work we do together. My focus is on improving our company culture, not diminishing it. Veronica interjected, her tone dripping with sarcasm. But Celeste, with the company's recent challenges, isn't it irresponsible to avoid the hard decisions? Celeste felt a surge of irritation but pushed it aside. What's irresponsible is fostering an environment of fear and distrust. We cannot thrive if we're not united. I'm committed to transparency and collaboration, and I expect all of you to join me in this mission. Another voice piped up from the back, but what about the financial reports? They're not looking good. Financial reports can fluctuate, but that doesn't mean we sacrifice our values, Celeste shot back, her passion igniting. We can find a way to balance our goals without compromising our integrity. As the meeting progressed, the atmosphere began to shift. Celeste's words resonated with some, and she could see the skepticism in their eyes slowly fading. But she knew she still had a long way to go. After the meeting, she felt drained yet invigorated. She stepped out into the hallway, leaning against the wall, closing her eyes for a moment. A soft voice interrupted her thoughts. Celeste. It was Leo, his expression filled with concern. Are you okay? I don't know, Leo, she admitted, her voice barely above a whisper. I feel like I'm fighting a losing battle. You're not, he replied, stepping closer. You've already taken a stand. That's the first step towards change. I just wish it was easier, she said, frustration lacing her tone. Nothing worth fighting forever is, he said gently. But you have to trust yourself. You're a great leader, Celeste. Just keep believing in yourself. His words wrapped around her like a warm embrace, filling her with a sense of comfort. In that moment, she realized she didn't have to navigate this storm alone. With Leo by her side, she felt a newfound determination to rise above the challenges ahead. The atmosphere in the sleek, glass-walled conference room was thick with tension as Celeste Harrington sat in her chair, her fingers tapping nervously against the polished surface of the table. The news of the corporate scandal had broken just hours ago, and the fallout was immediate. The bright city skyline outside felt like a distant world, one that was oblivious to the impending storm brewing within the walls of Harrington Enterprises. "Celeste, we need to address this. The media is going wild," said Marcus, her CFO, his voice steady but laced with urgency. He was a loyal ally, but even now, she could see the flicker of concern in his eyes. "Do we have any idea how this happened?" Celeste asked, her voice strained. She felt a growing knot in her stomach. The thought of betrayal by someone within her own ranks made her skin crawl. "Not yet, but we need a plan," said Rachel, her head of PR, adjusting her glasses as she scrolled through her tablet. "The leak came from inside. We need to control the narrative before it spirals out of our hands." Celeste felt a pang of frustration. Control the narrative? That's not the same as addressing the issue. We can't just spin this. We need to be transparent. Transparency can only go so far, Celeste, Marcus interjected. We need to protect the company's image. You're the face of this organization. How you respond matters. Celeste leaned back, feeling the weight of the world on her shoulders. She had spent years building this company, pouring her heart and soul into it. The thought of it all crumbling due to someone's malicious intent was infuriating. She took a deep breath, trying to steady herself. "I refuse to let fear dictate my response. We owe it to our employees and our clients to be honest." Rachel exchanged a glance with Marcus, and Celeste could sense the tension in the room. They were worried about her. They were worried about the company. But Celeste's mind drifted to Leo. His encouragement, his unwavering support, echoed in her thoughts. She could almost hear his voice reminding her of the importance of authenticity. As the meeting progressed, they discussed potential strategies, but Celeste felt increasingly disconnected. She couldn't shake the feeling that the boardroom discussions were just a facade. The real issue lay deeper, entwined with her own vulnerabilities and the culture she had fostered within the company. Hours later, the conference room emptied, but Celeste remained behind, staring out at the city that had once felt so promising. The bustling streets, filled with life, contrasted sharply with the chaos swirling in her mind. She needed to gather her thoughts, to formulate a plan that aligned with her values. Suddenly, her phone buzzed, breaking the silence. It was a text from Leo, "Thinking of you. If you need a break, I'm here." A small smile crept onto her face, but it quickly faded as the weight of her responsibilities returned. The following day, the media frenzy escalated. Celeste found herself standing at a podium in front of a sea of reporters, cameras flashing and microphones thrust toward her. She could feel the weight of their scrutiny, the sharpness of their questions. "Ms. Harrington, what do you have to say about the allegations of misconduct within your company?" a reporter shouted, cutting through the noise. Celeste inhaled deeply, her heart racing. "I appreciate your questions, and I want to assure everyone that we are taking this matter very seriously," she began, her voice firm but trembling slightly. "However, I must stress that we are still gathering information. We will not hide behind half-truths or rumors." "Are you aware of who is responsible for the leaks?" another reporter pressed, the intensity of the scrutiny feeling almost suffocating. "I cannot speculate at this time," she replied, keeping her composure. "What I can say is that we are committed to uncovering the truth and addressing any wrongdoing. We owe it to our employees and stakeholders." As the questions continued to bombard her, Celeste felt a wave of anxiety wash over her. She could see the headlines flashing in her mind: "CEO in crisis, company on the brink." But then she remembered Leo's words of encouragement, how he had urged her to be true to herself, to embrace her vulnerabilities. "Ms. Harrington, what will you do to ensure this doesn't happen again?" a journalist asked, their voice cutting through her thoughts. Celeste paused, and in that moment, she realized she had a choice. She could either hide behind corporate jargon or take a stand for what she believed in. "I will not make excuses for anyone's actions. But I will say this, transparency and accountability will be the cornerstones of our response. We are implementing new protocols to ensure that our values are upheld at every level of this organization." The crowd buzzed with murmurs, and she could see some reporters jotting down notes. For the first time, she felt a flicker of hope. Perhaps her honesty would resonate. After the press conference, Celeste returned to her office, feeling a mix of relief and exhaustion. She sank into her chair, her thoughts racing. The response from the media had been mixed, but she knew she had taken a step in the right direction. Just then, her phone buzzed again. It was Leo. "You were incredible today. Proud of you. Let's talk later." Celeste smiled, a warmth spreading through her chest. She needed to hear his voice, to share this moment of vulnerability with him. She replied quickly, "Thanks, Leo. I really appreciate your support. Can we meet tonight?" "Absolutely. I'll bring dinner," he texted back, and she felt a surge of anticipation. Later that evening, Celeste sat on her balcony, the city lights twinkling below her, a distant hum of life filling the air. She felt a sense of calm wash over her as she waited for Leo to arrive. The earlier chaos of the day began to fade, replaced by the comforting thought of being with him. When Leo arrived, he was carrying a takeout bag, a wide smile on his face. "I hope you like Thai," he said, his eyes lighting up as he caught sight of her. "Always," she replied, her heart warming at the sight of him. They settled on the balcony, sharing the meal, and she felt her shoulders relax as they talked about everything and nothing, the weight of the day slowly lifting. "You were amazing today," Leo said, looking at her with admiration. "You stood your ground against those reporters. That takes guts." Celeste chuckled softly, "I can't lie, I was terrified. But I realized that I needed to be honest. It's the only way I know how to lead." "And that's what makes you a great leader," he replied, reaching across the table to squeeze her hand. "You inspire people to be better." His touch sent a ripple of warmth through her. "I wish I had your confidence," she admitted, her voice softening. "You've shown me that it's okay to be vulnerable." Leo smiled, his expression earnest. "We all have our battles, Celeste. But what matters is how we face them. And you're doing it beautifully." In that moment, Celeste knew that no matter what challenges lay ahead, she was not alone. Leo's support, his unwavering belief in her, gave her the strength to confront the storm brewing on the horizon. Together, they would navigate the tumultuous waters of her corporate life, forging a path that honored both their truths. As they continued to talk and laugh, the world outside faded away, leaving just the two of them, united by their shared struggles and the love that had begun to blossom between them. Little did they know, the trials they faced were only just beginning, but for that night, they found solace in each other's presence, a refuge amidst the chaos. Celeste stood behind the podium, her heart racing as she faced the sea of reporters, cameras flashing like stars against the backdrop of the conference room. The air was thick with tension, and the weight of expectation pressed down on her shoulders. She could feel the eyes of her colleagues burning into her back, each one a reminder of the precarious position she found herself in. The recent corporate scandal had shaken the very foundation of her company, and now, as the CEO, it was her responsibility to address the public and her employees. Taking a deep breath, she adjusted the microphone, her hands trembling slightly. "Thank you all for being here today," she began, her voice steady despite the turmoil inside her. "I stand before you not just as the CEO of Harrington Enterprises, but as a person who believes in transparency and accountability." The murmurs in the room quieted down, and she could see the reporters leaning in, eager for her next words. "We have faced a serious breach of trust, and I want to address it head-on. I acknowledge the mistakes made, both by individuals within the company and by myself." She paused, allowing the weight of her admission to hang in the air. "I should have done more to ensure that we were operating with integrity." A few gasps echoed through the room. Celeste could see her assistant, Rebecca, shift nervously at the edge of the crowd, her expression a mix of concern and admiration. But Celeste couldn't focus on Rebecca's reaction. Her eyes scanned the sea of reporters, finally landing on Leo, who stood at the back. He was an anchor in the storm, his presence grounding her as she continued. "I want to be honest with you all," she pressed on, her voice growing stronger. "I have not always been the leader that this company deserves. I've allowed ambition to cloud my judgment, and in doing so, I have failed you." The vulnerability in her words was palpable, and she could see some of the reporters exchanging glances, intrigued by the shift in her demeanor. "Moving forward, I am committed to making changes that will prevent this from happening again. I believe in fostering a culture of integrity, where every voice matters, and where we stand together as a team." Celeste felt a surge of determination as she spoke, recalling her conversations with Leo and the way he had encouraged her to embrace authenticity. "I will be implementing new policies to ensure greater oversight and accountability within our leadership team." A reporter raised her hand, interrupting. "What specific changes can we expect, Ms. Harrington? How can we trust that this isn't just a public relations stunt?" Celeste met the reporter's gaze, her resolve unwavering. "Trust is earned, and I understand that I have a long way to go. We will be introducing a system for anonymous reporting of unethical behavior, where employees can feel safe to speak up without fear of retribution. Additionally, I'll be holding regular town hall meetings to engage directly with all employees, giving them a platform to voice their concerns and suggestions." The room buzzed with renewed energy, and Celeste could see the skepticism begin to shift as some reporters scribbled notes furiously. "These changes are just the beginning," she added, her voice firm. "I'm here to listen and learn from my mistakes, and I hope to rebuild your trust through action, not just words." As she concluded her statement, she felt a weight lift from her chest. The collective atmosphere in the room had transformed from one of hostility to cautious optimism. She took a step back from the podium, her heart still racing, but a sense of relief washed over her. "Thank you for your time," she said, and with that, she turned to leave the stage. But as she stepped down, Leo approached her, his expression a blend of pride and concern. "You did great," he said softly, his voice barely above a whisper. "I'm proud of you." Celeste smiled, her heart swelling at his words. "I was terrified, Leo. But I felt like you were with me, somehow." He chuckled lightly, the corners of his mouth lifting. "I was, in spirit at least. You spoke from the heart, and that's what people need to see." Just then, a reporter called out from the back, "Ms. Harrington. What about the financial implications of these changes? Will there be layoffs?" Celeste turned back, her stomach twisting at the question. "While I cannot guarantee there won't be challenges ahead, my goal is to create a sustainable future for this company, which means investing in our people, not cutting them." As she spoke, she felt Leo's steady gaze on her, and it bolstered her confidence. "We will navigate this together," she added, her voice resolute. "I am committed to making this company not just a place of work, but a community where everyone thrives." After the press conference, as the reporters began to disperse, Celeste felt a wave of exhaustion wash over her, but also a flicker of hope. The path ahead was uncertain, but she was ready to face it with renewed vigor. Leo fell into step beside her as they walked away from the chaos. "You handled that really well," he said, a genuine smile lighting up his face. "I think people are starting to see the real you." Celeste glanced at him, her heart fluttering. "Thank you, Leo. I couldn't have done it without your encouragement. You always remind me to be true to myself." His expression softened. Well, you're inspiring, Celeste. You have the potential to change things for the better, not just for yourself but for everyone in the company. She looked ahead, her thoughts racing. I want to make it a place where people feel valued, where they can share their ideas without fear. I want to change the culture. Leo nodded, his eyes bright with enthusiasm. And you will. You're already making a difference. As they stepped outside, the sun broke through the clouds, casting a warm glow over the bustling city. Celeste felt a sense of purpose awaken within her, fueled by Leo's unwavering support. Let's grab a coffee, Leo suggested, glancing at her with that familiar spark of excitement. You deserve a break after all that. Celeste smiled, feeling a sense of ease wash over her. I'd love that, she replied. I could use some normalcy right now. As they walked side by side, their hands brushed against each other, sending a jolt of electricity through her. In that moment, Celeste realized that it wasn't just her professional life that was shifting, something deeper was blossoming between them, a connection that felt both exhilarating and terrifying. I've been thinking, she said, her cheeks warming as she stole a glance at him. About how I can support your art. Your talent deserves to be seen. Leo looked at her, surprise dancing in his eyes. Really? You'd want to help me with that? Absolutely, she replied, her voice filled with conviction. You have a gift, Leo. And I want to help you share it with the world. He grinned, the warmth in his eyes making her heart race. That means a lot to me, Celeste. I've always wanted to do something meaningful with my art, but I didn't know where to start. Let's brainstorm ideas together, Celeste suggested, her mind racing with possibilities. We could create a campaign that showcases your work, something that reflects the new direction I want to take with the company. As they entered a cozy cafe, the scent of freshly brewed coffee enveloped them, and Celeste felt a wave of comfort wash over her. They found a small table by the window, and as they sat down, she realized how much she cherished these moments with Leo. I never imagined that I would find someone who understands me like you do, she admitted, her voice barely above a whisper. Leo's expression turned serious, and he leaned forward, his gaze locked on hers. I feel the same way. You're not just a CEO to me, you're a person who inspires me to be better. I'm grateful to have you in my life. Celeste felt her heart swell, and as they sat in that cafe, surrounded by the chatter of patrons, she knew that whatever challenges lay ahead, they would face them together. The connection they were forging was something she had never experienced before, and with each passing moment, she felt the boundaries between their worlds begin to dissolve. Celeste Harrington leaned back on the park bench, a gentle breeze rustling the leaves above. It was a rare moment of serenity amidst the chaos of her corporate life. She glanced at Leo Grayson seated next to her, his easy smile and relaxed demeanor bringing an unexpected warmth to her heart. The vibrant colors of spring painted the park in hues of green and gold, but Celeste was more captivated by the man beside her. Can you believe this weather? She asked, letting out a soft laugh. It's like New York finally decided to take a break from the hustle. Leo chuckled, his eyes sparkling with enthusiasm. It's perfect. Makes you feel like you can breathe again, right? He stretched his arms overhead, basking in the sun. I love days like this. It reminds me of why I love to draw outdoors. Drawing? Celeste perked up, genuinely interested. You mentioned you like to sketch, but I'd love to see your work sometime. Leo's cheeks turned a shade of crimson as he scratched the back of his neck, a shy smile spreading across his face. Well, I'm not exactly a Picasso, but I have a few pieces I'm proud of. I mostly draw what I see around me. People, nature. Sometimes the city itself. What do you see in the city? Celeste asked, her curiosity piqued. It must be different from what I see every day in the boardroom. He paused, contemplating her question. I see stories. Every person walking by has their own journey, their own struggles. Sometimes I sit in the park and just watch. You can see the weight on their shoulders, or the joy in their laughter. It's all there if you know where to look. Celeste felt a stir of admiration for Leo's perspective. His ability to see beauty in the mundane was a refreshing contrast to her own often hectic and driven worldview. I never thought about it that way, she admitted. In my world, we're so focused on numbers and profits that we often forget the stories behind the faces. Leo looked at her, his expression shifting to one of understanding. It's easy to get lost in that. But you have the power to change that, you know. Your position gives you a platform. You can create an environment where people are valued for more than just their output. Celeste felt a warmth spread through her at his words, as if he were encouraging her to embrace a vulnerability she had long since buried beneath layers of corporate armor. I've been trying to do just that. After everything that's happened, I want to reshape the culture at my company. I want people to feel seen and heard. Then you're already on the right path, Leo said, his voice steady and reassuring. Just keep being honest. That's what people respond to. They fell into a comfortable silence, the air filled with the distant sounds of children laughing and the rustle of leaves. Celeste watched as Leo pulled out a small sketchbook from his bag, flipping through the pages filled with his intricate drawings. He paused on one page and held it out to her. Here, he said, a hint of shyness returning to his voice. This is a sketch I did last week. It's just a quick one, but it captures the vibe of the park. Celeste took the sketch, her breath catching in her throat. The drawing portrayed a bustling scene of the park, people lounging on benches, children playing, and lovers sharing quiet moments. It was alive with detail, and she could almost hear the laughter and chatter emanating from the page. This is beautiful, Leo, she said, her voice filled with genuine admiration. You have a real gift. His smile widened, a mixture of pride and humility washing over him. Thanks. It's just something I do to help me process everything around me. I guess it's my way of connecting with the world. Celeste handed the sketch back, feeling inspired. You should really consider showcasing your work. You could have a gallery show or something. Leo looked down, a flicker of doubt crossing his face. I don't know. I've never really thought about it. It's just a hobby for me. But it shouldn't be, she insisted, leaning closer. You have talent, and the world deserves to see it. I'd love to help you with that if you're interested. Her offer hung in the air, and Leo's gaze met hers, filled with uncertainty. You'd really do that? Of course. I mean, I have connections, she said, a playful grin forming on her lips. Plus, I could use a little artistic inspiration in my life. We could work together. Leo chuckled softly, the tension easing between them. Okay, I'll think about it. But only if you promise not to overthink it like you do everything else, he teased, a playful glint in his eyes. Deal, Celeste replied, feeling a rush of excitement. No corporate jargon, just creativity. As the day wore on, they strolled through the park, losing track of time as they shared stories and laughter. Celeste found herself opening up about her life in ways she hadn't anticipated. She spoke about her childhood, the pressures of family expectations, and the loneliness that sometimes accompanied her success. I've always been the overachiever, she confessed, her voice softening. And sometimes, I wonder if I've sacrificed too much for my career. Leo nodded, understanding flickering in his eyes. It's easy to get caught up in that. But you're more than just your job, Celeste. You have dreams and passions, too. Don't forget that. She smiled, feeling a sense of comfort in his presence. You're right. I've been so focused on my role as CEO that I've neglected who I am outside of work. I need to find that balance. The conversation shifted to lighter topics, and they spent the afternoon discussing their favorite movies, music, and the little things that made them happy. It felt like they were two old friends reconnecting rather than two people from vastly different worlds. As the sun began to dip below the horizon, casting a warm glow over the park, Leo turned to her, a more serious expression settling on his face. "Celeste, can I ask you something?" "Of course," she replied, curiosity sparking in her eyes. "What do you want?" "I mean, really want, for yourself?" His question hung in the air, profound and challenging. Celeste hesitated, her heart racing. It was a question she had avoided for too long. I want to be happy," she finally admitted, her voice trembling slightly. "I want to find joy in my life again. Not just in work, but in everything." Leo gave her a warm smile, his eyes filled with sincerity. "Then don't be afraid to chase that happiness. You deserve it." In that moment, Celeste realized how much Leo's presence had shifted something deep within her. He had encouraged her to embrace vulnerability and authenticity, something she had long shied away from. Their bond felt electric, a connection that transcended their social barriers. As they left the park, hand in hand, Celeste couldn't help but feel hopeful. For the first time in a long time, she felt a sense of possibility, a beautiful intertwining of their lives that hinted at something deeper than friendship. The love that had begun to blossom between them was still fragile, but it was there, a delicate thread weaving their paths together in ways she had never expected. As the days passed in the whirlwind of corporate life, the atmosphere at Celeste Harrington's company shifted. Rumors buzzed like angry hornets, and the shadow of the recent scandal loomed ever larger. The whispers of doubt echoed through the hallways, seeping into every corner of the building. Celeste felt the weight of her responsibilities pressing down on her chest, each breath becoming a struggle against the tide of uncertainty. It was one of those late afternoons when the golden light spilled through the floor-to-ceiling windows of her office, illuminating the chaos around her. Celeste stared at her computer screen, her mind racing with thoughts of what lay ahead. She had just received an anonymous tip about the investigation that was unraveling her carefully crafted world. The walls felt like they were closing in, and the pressure was mounting. Just as she was about to lose herself in the spiraling thoughts, her phone buzzed. The message was from Leo. "Can we talk?" The simplicity of the words sent a jolt of relief through her. Leo had been a constant source of support amidst the chaos, and she welcomed the distraction that his presence could bring. When they met in the small cafe around the corner from her office, she noted the worried look etched on his face, a stark contrast to the easy smile she had come to cherish. They settled into a corner booth, the air thick with unspoken tension. "Celeste," Leo began, his voice low and steady, "I've been hearing things about the investigation. Are you okay?" She looked down at her coffee, swirling the liquid absent-mindedly. "I'm fine," she replied, not quite meeting his gaze. "Just dealing with some issues. At work." "Dealing?" "Celeste, this is more than just dealing. You're under pressure, and I can see it," he insisted, leaning forward, concern etched in his brow. "You don't have to go through this alone." The warmth in his voice tugged at her heart, but she felt the familiar walls begin to rise. "I appreciate your concern, Leo, but you don't understand the stakes here. If I don't handle this correctly, it could ruin everything I've worked for." "Isn't that the point of having people you trust around you?" he countered, his eyes searching hers. "You've shown me so much about vulnerability, yet you're shutting me out now. What are you afraid of?" She hesitated, the weight of her fears pressing hard against her chest. "I'm afraid of dragging you into my mess. I can't let you get hurt because of me." Leo's expression shifted to one of disbelief. "You think I'd let that happen? Celeste, you mean too much to me. I'd rather stand by you and face whatever is coming than watch you go through this alone." Tears prickled at the corners of her eyes. "You don't know what you're asking for. This world is ruthless, and I'm in the middle of it. I'm the target right now. Then let me help you. You're not just a CEO to me, you're a person who deserves support." He leaned back, crossing his arms, the frustration clear in his tone. "I can't just stand by and watch you go down this path. You need to fight back, not hide away." Celeste took a deep breath, the fight in her fading against the gentleness of his words. I don't know how to fight this, she admitted, vulnerability creeping into her voice. I've always had to be the strong one. I don't even know what that looks like. Then let's figure it out together, Leo replied, his voice unwavering. You've already shown me what it means to be brave. Now, let's show them who you really are. As they sat in that cafe, the air thick with unspoken promises and burgeoning connection, Celeste felt a flicker of hope ignite within her. Perhaps, just perhaps, she didn't have to face the storm alone. But as they left the cafe, a feeling of dread settled in her stomach. The storm was brewing, and she felt the first droplets of rain against her skin. Over the next few days, the office buzzed with anxiety. Colleagues whispered in hushed tones, casting sidelong glances at Celeste as if she were the epicenter of a brewing storm. Every time the phone rang or an email pinged, she felt a jolt of panic rush through her. The tension was palpable, and the atmosphere grew thicker with each passing hour. One afternoon, while reviewing a report in her office, Celeste was interrupted by a sharp knock on the door. It was her colleague, Vanessa, a fierce competitor who had always harbored ambitions that clashed with Celeste's. The tension between them was electric, and Celeste braced herself for whatever was coming. Celeste, Vanessa began, a smirk playing on her lips, I just wanted to check in. I heard about the investigation. I can't imagine how difficult this must be for you. Her voice dripped with sarcasm, but Celeste was determined not to react. Thank you, Vanessa. I appreciate your concern, Celeste replied, her voice steady. Vanessa stepped closer, her eyes narrowing. You know, it's not easy to maintain a facade of perfection when the cracks are starting to show. People are talking. They're losing faith in your leadership. Celeste felt a rush of anger but tempered it with professionalism. My leadership is not defined by gossip, Vanessa. I'm more than capable of handling this. Oh, really? Because from where I'm standing, it looks like you're on the verge of collapse, Vanessa shot back, her tone dripping with condescension. You might want to consider who you're surrounding yourself with. It's not just about the press, it's about the people who work under you. Celeste's patience was wearing thin. And it's not just about you trying to undermine me, is it? You've always wanted this position. For yourself. But I won't let your jealousy dictate the narrative. Vanessa laughed, a sharp, cutting sound. Jealousy? Hardly. I'm simply pointing out the truth. If you're not careful, you'll lose everything. And I'll be right here to pick up the pieces. With that, Vanessa turned on her heel and strode out, leaving Celeste reeling with a mix of anger and frustration. She leaned back in her chair, taking a moment to breathe deeply, forcing herself to regain composure. That evening, as she paced her apartment, the weight of the world feeling heavier than ever, she received a message from Leo, let's meet. I want to help. Celeste's heart raced. She needed him more than ever. They met at their usual spot, and the moment she saw him, a rush of relief washed over her. Leo, she started, but he interrupted her gently. Let me guess. Vanessa was at it again, he said, his eyes narrowing, concern etched in his features. She nodded, feeling the frustration bubble up. She's trying to undermine me, to make me doubt myself. It's like she's waiting for me to fail. Leo reached for her hand, grounding her in the moment. You have to remember what you've accomplished. You're not just a CEO, you're a force of nature. Don't let her get inside your head. I know, but it's hard. The pressure is relentless, and I feel like I'm losing control, she admitted, her voice trembling slightly. What if I can't turn this around? Then we'll turn it around together, Leo replied firmly. You don't have to fight this battle alone. Let's figure out a plan. You have the vision, I can help you with the creativity to make it real. Celeste felt a warmth spread through her at his words. In the midst of her chaos, he was the calm and strength she desperately needed. You really mean that? Of course I do. I believe in you, Celeste. You've shown me that true leadership comes from authenticity, not just strength. Let's harness that power. As they sat together, strategizing and brainstorming, Celeste felt a renewed sense of purpose. She knew the challenges ahead were daunting, but with Leo by her side, the storm felt a little less overwhelming. She realized that the love they had nurtured amidst the chaos was becoming her anchor, a source of strength to face the tempest that awaited. But deep down, she couldn't shake the feeling that the storm was only just beginning. Celeste stood by the large window of her corner office, staring out at the skyline of New York City as dusk settled over the buildings. The golden light of the setting sun cast a warm glow, but it did nothing to alleviate the chill in her heart. She felt overwhelmed by the weight of expectations, both from herself and those around her. The recent scandal had shaken her to the core, and the pressure from her colleagues was palpable. She could sense the whispers behind her back, the doubt seeping into the very fabric of the office. Her mind drifted to Leo, the man who had unexpectedly entered her life and challenged her perceptions. The brief yet meaningful encounters they had shared filled her with a warmth that was now overshadowed by anxiety. She hadn't seen him in days, not since their last conversation. The moment Leo had expressed his desire to support her, she had recoiled, fearing that his involvement in her chaotic world would only bring him pain. The door to her office swung open, and in walked her assistant, Sarah, with a concerned look on her face. "Celeste, are you okay? You've been awfully quiet lately," she said, her voice laced with worry. Celeste forced a smile, though it didn't reach her eyes. "I'm fine, Sarah. Just a lot on my mind." "Are you sure? You know you can talk to me, right?" Sarah pressed gently, stepping further into the room. "I appreciate that, but I really just need some time to think," Celeste replied, her voice firm. Sarah nodded, but her concern lingered. "Just remember, you're not alone in this. You have a team that believes in you." As Sarah left the room, Celeste's thoughts turned back to Leo. She had pushed him away, thinking it was for his own good, but deep down, she felt the ache of his absence. The way he had looked at her, with understanding and support, made her realize how much she had come to rely on him. But the fear of dragging him into her mess was stronger than her desire to be near him. Meanwhile, Leo was in his small apartment, the walls adorned with his artwork, each piece a reflection of his soul. He sat on the edge of his bed, sketching absent-mindedly in his notebook. Though he was surrounded by his creations, the emptiness of his heart weighed heavily on him. Celeste's absence was a gaping hole in his life. He had tried to focus on his art, but every line he drew seemed to remind him of her. He picked up his phone and stared at it, contemplating whether he should reach out. After their last encounter, he felt a mix of frustration and longing. She had pushed him away, and he couldn't understand why. He sighed, tossing the phone onto the bed. His brother had always told him to be brave, to fight for what mattered. But how could he fight for Celeste when she was the one building walls between them? That evening, after a long day of work, Leo decided he couldn't stay away any longer. He walked towards the office building, his heart racing with the thought of seeing her again. As he entered the lobby, he was greeted by the familiar faces of the cleaning staff. They exchanged nods, but Leo's focus was solely on Celeste. He needed to understand what was happening between them. When he reached her office, he found the door slightly ajar. He hesitated for a moment, then pushed it open. Celeste was seated at her desk, papers scattered around her, a look of deep concentration on her face. She looked up, startled, and for a moment, they simply stared at each other, the tension in the air crackling like static electricity. "Leo," she said, surprise evident in her voice. "Hey," he replied, his voice softer than he intended. I wanted to check on you." Celeste's expression softened, but a shadow of uncertainty crossed her face. "I'm fine. Just busy with work." "Busy avoiding me, you mean?" Leo's tone was light, but the underlying hurt was palpable. She looked away, her gaze fixating on the cityscape outside the window. It's complicated, Leo. Complicated? Or are you just scared? He challenged gently, stepping closer to her desk. I've been trying to understand why you've been pushing me away. I thought we were building something real. Celeste's heart raced at his words. She wanted to argue, to defend herself, but deep down, she knew he was right. It's not that simple, she finally said, her voice barely above a whisper. Then make it simple, Leo urged, his frustration bubbling to the surface. I care about you, Celeste. The last thing I want is for you to feel alone in this mess. You don't have to deal with everything by yourself. She looked up at him, her blue eyes shimmering with unshed tears. I don't want to drag you into my chaos. You deserve better than this. I'm not afraid of chaos, he replied, his tone earnest. I've seen my share of it. What I'm afraid of is losing you because you think you have to face everything alone. You don't. Celeste felt the dam inside her begin to crack. What if I can't handle it? What if I can't keep it together? Then let me help you, Leo said earnestly. I'm here for you, Celeste. You don't have to carry this weight by yourself. In that moment, the walls she had built around her heart began to crumble. She felt vulnerable, exposed, but also liberated by his words. I'm scared, Leo. Scared of losing everything I've worked for. Scared of letting you in and finding out that I'm not enough. Leo stepped closer, his presence warm and reassuring. You are more than enough. You're strong, talented, and you fought hard to get where you are. Don't let fear dictate your life. Let me be part of it. Tears streamed down Celeste's face as she finally allowed herself to feel the pain she had been suppressing. I've been pushing you away because I thought it would protect you. I didn't want you to get hurt because of me. Celeste, the only thing hurting right now is you, he said softly, reaching out to wipe away her tears with his thumb. You don't have to face this alone. Let me stand by you. In that moment of intimacy, they both recognized the depth of their connection. Celeste took a deep breath, the air filling her lungs with courage she hadn't felt in weeks. I don't want to lose you, Leo, she confessed, her voice trembling. You won't lose me, he promised, his eyes locked onto hers. Let's face this together. The tension that had built between them melted away, replaced by a sense of unity. Celeste realized that she didn't have to face her struggles alone. With Leo by her side, she felt a flicker of hope igniting within her. They were both battling their demons, but together, they could confront anything that came their way. As they stood there, the city lights beginning to twinkle in the background, Celeste felt a renewed sense of purpose. She was ready to embrace the chaos, with Leo beside her, ready to face whatever challenges lay ahead. The room was thick with tension as Celeste Harrington stood at the podium, a sea of cameras and reporters before her, each lens trained on her with an intensity that felt almost suffocating. The recent scandal had rocked her company to its core, and now she was about to face the world. Her heart raced as she glanced at Leo Grayson in the front row. He had come to support her, a reassuring presence amid the chaos, and that thought alone gave her strength. Celeste, shouted a reporter from the back, her voice sharp and demanding. What do you have to say about the leaked documents? Many are calling for your resignation. Celeste took a deep breath, her palms slick against the polished wood of the podium. She had rehearsed this moment in her mind countless times, but nothing could prepare her for the reality of standing there, vulnerable and exposed. I understand your concerns, she began, her voice steady yet soft. I want to address the allegations head-on. She glanced at Leo again, and in that moment, she felt a wave of calm wash over her. His eyes were filled with encouragement, reminding her of their late-night talks where they peeled back the layers of their lives, revealing their fears and dreams. I won't hide behind corporate jargon or legalese. I will speak the truth, and I hope you will listen. The crowd murmured, intrigued. She continued, "The documents you've seen were leaked by someone within the company, someone I once considered a friend. They were designed to undermine not just my leadership, but the integrity of our entire organization." Celeste's voice grew stronger as she spoke. "I take full responsibility for the culture we've created, and I recognize that it has not always been inclusive or ethical. I am committed to changing that." A hand shot up in the crowd, and a reporter interrupted, "But how can we trust that you will follow through on your promises? Many are skeptical of your intentions." Celeste squared her shoulders, her resolve hardening. "Trust is earned, and I am ready to do the work. I propose a complete restructuring of our company's leadership and a series of transparency initiatives designed to ensure accountability at every level. We will create a task force that includes employees from all departments, so that every voice is heard. This is not just about me, it's about all of us." The murmurs in the crowd grew louder, a mix of skepticism and intrigue. Just then, Leo stood up, his voice cutting through the noise. "Celeste, you're doing this for the right reasons. You've shown me the kind of leader you can be. This isn't just about saving your job, it's about changing the way this company operates for the better." Celeste's heart swelled at his words. "Thank you, Leo," she said, her gaze softening. "I appreciate your support." The reporters were now buzzing, the dynamic shifting as they sensed the authenticity in her words. "What about the artistic direction of the company?" another journalist pressed. "Will there be changes there as well?" Celeste smiled, a flicker of inspiration lighting up her features. "Yes, absolutely. We will revitalize our brand by bringing in fresh perspectives. I believe that art and business should go hand in hand. In fact, I'd like to announce a new initiative that will showcase emerging artists, people like Leo." A collective gasp echoed through the room, and Leo's eyes widened in surprise. "Me?" he mouthed, disbelief etched on his face. "Yes, Leo," Celeste affirmed, her confidence bolstering with every word. "You've shared your talent with me, and I believe it deserves to be seen. I want you to lead a new artistic campaign that reflects the values we are striving for: authenticity, diversity, and community." The reporters were now fully engaged, their pens flying across their notepads as they captured the moment. "What a bold move," one remarked. "This could change the face of the company." Celeste nodded, her heart racing with excitement and fear. "This is just the beginning. I want to build a company that not only excels in business but also uplifts and inspires. We have a responsibility to our employees and our community, and I won't shy away from that challenge." The collective energy in the room shifted once again, a blend of hope and curiosity replacing the earlier skepticism. As the press conference wrapped up, Celeste felt a weight lift from her shoulders. She had taken a stand, not only for herself but for everyone who had felt voiceless in the company. Once the cameras stopped rolling and the reporters began to disperse, Leo approached her, his expression a mix of admiration and disbelief. "Celeste, that was incredible," he said, his voice low and filled with emotion. "I can't believe you just did that." "I had to," she replied, her eyes sparkling. "I couldn't let fear dictate my actions any longer. Thank you for believing in me, Leo. It means more than you know." Leo took a step closer, the air between them charged with unspoken feelings. "You know, I've always believed in the power of honesty, but seeing you up there today was something else. You were fearless." Celeste felt a flutter in her chest at his words. "And it's because of you. You showed me that vulnerability can be strength." Just then, a tall figure approached them, a man with an air of authority and a confident stride. "Celeste Harrington?" he asked, extending his hand. "I'm an investor who has been following your story today. I must say, I was impressed by your courage. I'd like to discuss how I can support your vision moving forward." Leo watched in awe as Celeste exchanged business cards and engaged with the investor. It was a pivotal moment, one that could change everything for both of them. "I believe in what you're trying to do, and I'd like to invest in your new direction for the company," the investor continued. "I think we can do great things together." Celeste smiled, a sense of relief washing over her. "Thank you. I'd love to discuss this further." As the conversation progressed, Leo's heart swelled with pride. Celeste was not just a powerful CEO, she was a force for change, someone who dared to dream bigger than corporate norms allowed. When the investor finally left, Leo turned to Celeste, his voice filled with admiration. "You did it, Celeste. You opened the door to a new future." "I couldn't have done it without you," she replied, her gaze sincere. "This is just the beginning for both of us." As they stepped outside into the bustling streets of New York, the sun shining brightly above, Leo felt a sense of hope budding within him. They had weathered the storm together, their connection deepening through the trials they faced. "Celeste," Leo began, hesitating for a moment. "There's something I need to tell you." He took a deep breath, his heart pounding in his chest. "I've been an artist for years, but I've hidden that part of myself. I wanted to make sure I was stable before pursuing my dreams. I never thought I'd have the chance to lead an artistic campaign, especially with you." Celeste turned to him, her eyes wide with surprise. "Leo, I had no idea. You're unbelievably talented. I've seen your sketches. You should be proud of who you are." "I am now," he said, a smile breaking through his earlier uncertainty. "And I want to share that with you. I want to create something beautiful together, something that reflects our journey." Celeste reached for his hand, intertwining their fingers as they walked down the street. "Together, we can inspire others. Let's change the narrative, not just for our company but for ourselves." They shared a moment of silence, a beautiful understanding passing between them. They were not just two people from different worlds, they were partners in every sense of the word, ready to face whatever challenges lay ahead. As they ventured forward, the future seemed brighter than ever, filled with possibilities that transcended their pasts. They had found love amid chaos, and together, they would build a legacy that celebrated both art and authenticity, a true testament to the love that blossomed in the spaces between their lives.